Right before you today is the last great Subaru. Subaru has completely lost their way and forgotten everything that makes them special, and this is the end of an era. This is the last WRX STI because for some reason, Subaru one morning woke up and thought, I'm gonna be boring. And they decided to just completely stop making interesting, fun cars. The most interesting cars you can get from Subaru are a rebadged Toyota GR86, a CVT WRX with more plastic cladding than most crossovers, and the Crosstrek Wilderness, which, to be fair, it is a business and a business's goal is to make money. So if they decided that they can't make money on the STI anymore, the sad truth is they're not going to sell the STI. But the STI has such a storied history of rally wins and racing pedigree. It's the one Subaru that makes everybody like Subaru. It's like if BMW tomorrow decided it was going to stop making the M3. That's exactly what this is like. So whether or not the WRX STI actually made Subaru enough money, killing it off was one of the biggest mistakes ever made in the car industry. But Subaru now has completely lost their way. The warning signs came when Subaru dropped the 2011 Legacy, which I have reviewed. It is the most boring car ever featured on my channel. Wouldn't recommend watching it unless you're looking for something to fall asleep to. That Legacy was completely boring and badly made. That was the beginning of the end. This generation of WRX was also the first, but not last, unfortunately, to offer a CVT. Okay, I gotta keep my composure. This generation WRX was the first but not last to offer a CVT. Yeah, one of those transmissions. Fortunately, in the STI, all you could get was a 6-speed manual, which is the only transmission that makes sense in any WRX. Coming from an ex-automatic WRX owner, I know, but at least my old car was a real automatic, not a... As I said before, this STI, as of this moment, is the final WRX STI. God knows why Subaru threw away the most special and the most famous car that they make. Sure, it's not for everybody. Sure, it's not going to be appealing to people that are in the market for Ascent crossovers, but it's the one car that makes Subaru special. It's the one car that gave Subaru an identity, and it's the one car that got Subaru respect from the coolest people in the world, car enthusiasts. It's very sad to see the STI go, and in my opinion, and probably most other people, this is the last great Subaru. Every Subaru since has felt like a boring appliance. The only two cool Subarus on the market right now, again, one is just a rebadged Toyota that's uglier, so it doesn't really count, and the other, the new WRX, let's face it, they didn't even try. They gave it 3 more horsepower, made it much uglier, and it's still offering one of those transmissions. And it's safe to say that the new WRX has been a complete sales disaster. Subaru completely messed up on the current one, and they're killing off the Legacy. Not that big of a deal. In my opinion, they killed the Legacy off 15 years ago. And every other Subaru is just an appliance with absolutely no personality. This STI is the final great Subaru, the final Subaru that was good to drive, the final Subaru that was special. And at this point, you might be wondering what the differences are between the WRX and the STI of this era. Obviously, what you can see before you, the most obvious is the bodywork. That huge rear spoiler is only available on the STI and the STI logos obviously, but it had changes underneath. Instead of a 2-liter turbocharged boxer 4-cylinder engine like the WRX had, the STI got a 2.5-liter boxer 4-cylinder turbocharged engine that came with a power boost. The WRX made 268 horsepower and the STI makes a full 310, which isn't much more than the first STI that arrived on our shores in 2004, which made 300 horsepower. It only made 10 more after nearly 20 years. Didn't make much sense there, but it was more power. Also, standard 6-speed manual transmission only, and this center differential is actually configurable for a lot of mechanical, technical stuff I don't understand, but it's configurable for how much locking you want and if you want some tail-out fun on the rally stage. Also, the STI has hydraulic power steering instead of electric power steering in the WRX for better feel, more analog feel, and better brakes, better suspension, wider tires. A bunch of mechanical changes underneath set this STI apart from the standard WRX. So let's take a review type tour of the STI. We start at the back end of the Subaru WRX sexually transmitted infection, where we find a massive, absolutely massive rear wing back here. People that don't know anything about Subarus will look at this and think, wow, what a ridiculous modification. I can't believe that 16-year-old boy thought he could impress girls by putting that wing there, and no, it's factory. That's how the STI has always been, not just this one. Every STI before it has had a big wing. Even the famous Colin McRae rally car, the 22B of the day, had a big rear spoiler. So this is an STI trademark, if you could say that. Let's check out the cargo area. I press the button and you hear beep, beep, just like your Subaru Forester would. And inside we find my backpack, ignore that, and a basic rear trunk area back here. It's got some carpeting around, got this skid plate for luggage when you're pulling it out, and yeah, that's it. So let's talk about the wing. I don't know if it actually provides any downforce. Would look that one up, or look it up in the comment section. Bet people are gonna be telling me their opinions down there. Again, it's a huge rear wing, and the one thing I love about these rear wings is you can use it to close the trunk. Like that, it's another handle. It's a big trunk handle. You could do it the boring way by holding onto the actual trunk lid, or you could do it the cool way with the wing, and I'm blabbering, so let's keep going. The back seat of the WRX STI. Now, the one thing that set the WRX STI, and I guess the regular WRX back in the day, apart from everything else, was that it was a somewhat affordable, really, really fast car that you could put your kids in the back of. So, kids can definitely fit back here. I'm not sure if me as a 6'3" tall human can super well, but honestly, this is based on the Impreza, Subaru's smallest sedan, at least in the United States. It's not too bad back here. I am definitely a little bit cramped. My knees are digging into the driver's seat, and if I put my head back, it's definitely touching, but it's not as bad as I would expect. Again, I used to own a 2004 WRX wagon, and back here it's a little bit more spacious. You can definitely tell that it's gotten bigger over the years. And it's pretty basic back here, but you do have special upholstery for the seats and the door panels and red seat belts in the STI, which you don't get in the WRX, I believe. And there's red stitching, red accents everywhere you look. And it's the same back here as it is in the front. So they didn't skip out on cost by making a completely gray monochromatic interior back here. It's got the same red trim and red stitching and red seat belts that you have up front. Up front in the STI, this is the driver-focused driver Subaru, so as what you'd expect, there's a lot of stuff up here. First off, the seats have STI imprinted in the headrest, which I guess is the only feature that the front seats have that the back seats skip out on. And I sit in here, I look forward at this very sporty, chunky steering wheel. It's got perforated leather on the sides, got red stitching everywhere else, and a nice STI badge there to distract you from the fact that this is probably, on the center, the exact same steering wheel as what you'd get in a Forester. Again, I've got more of this Alcantara with red stitching here on the door panel and on the seats. The seats again are trimmed in red, and I once again have red seat belts up here, which is really cool. I love colored seatbelts. I think it's kind of an interesting little sporty car feature. I've got heated seats for 2 levels up here, which is nice to have. And moving forward from that, you have the biggest indicator, at least when you're sitting here, the car's not running, between the STI and the WRX. This is labeled SI drive, and it's the configurable center differential. Also, your drive modes are here. You have sport and sport sharp. There is no economy setting in this car. It's either sport or sport sharp. It's so sporty that you could cut yourself on it. Don't really get that, but I guess it sharpens up throttle response, sharpens up the suspension, sharpens up the steering feel, maybe everything. But the most important thing is your configurable center differential, which aids handling and tail out action. Maybe not on the street as much as on the rally stage, but it's something that's there, and it's commonly found in STIs and Mitsubishi Evos. Apologies that I'm not really explaining it super well, but just know that it's a differential that you can configure how much lock is on it, and my mechanical knowledge is shockingly low. If anyone hasn't noticed yet, that's as far as I'm going to get. So let's move forward to the 6-speed manual transmission. Only a 6-speed manual was offered in the final STI. No stupid CVT, no stupid automatic transmission, only a 6-speed manual and 3 pedals. It's got a gear layout on top of the gear knob like what you'd expect, but the background is red to remind you that you're in the extra special, extra sporty WRX STI. And if the red seatbelts, the red trim, the red stitching, the configurable center differential, the 6-speed manual with the gear layout on a red background isn't enough to convince you that you're in an STI, don't worry, they reminded you by putting a special STI badge forward from the gear selector. So there's absolutely no way that you will mistake this for a standard Impreza. Moving up from that, you have basic climate controls and Subaru's infotainment, which is boring and I'm not going to talk about it. A CD player though, which is kind of fun to see. Up there on top, you have an extra little digital gauge to show you your turbo boost, your acceleration, power, and a bunch of other stuff. And also the time is up there. And I think that gauge is also in every Subaru model or every Subaru Impreza based car of the day, including the Crosstrek. But in here, it's used for your turbo boost, because that's the most important thing when you're in an STI. But the most important thing in an STI is the powertrain, which we're about to look at, and the driving experience, which we are going to see how that is in a second. So let's move forward. So as I disclosed earlier, this engine in this STI is slightly different from the engine in the WRX. The most important part of that being the fact that instead of a 2-liter boxer 4-cylinder engine, it is a 2.5 boxer 4-cylinder engine, which has helped with the added boost, pardon the pun, of a turbocharger to develop 310 horsepower, which will power you straight from 0 to your next head gasket replacement quicker than the WRX can. Also, this engine is built a little bit better to handle modifications, because Subaru realized back in the day when they still knew what they were doing, that people would take these cars and modify them. So it's got some improvements here and there to make it a little bit easier to modify and a little bit more responsive to modifications. And I don't mean responsive in a bad way where the engine explodes, which is an STI Subaru side effect for sure, but responsive in the opposite way where it takes mods and uses them well and doesn't completely disintegrate immediately. It will down the line, because it's Subaru. So far, because this car is pretty much brand new, it's a 2021, I don't smell burning oil quite yet, but I know it's on the way. Those valve cover gaskets are probably inching their way towards your next expensive $2,000 plus repair. But right now, it's nice to see an STI motor totally unmodified and completely clean. And of course, once again, that power from this engine is transferred to all 4 wheels via a 6-speed manual only, and the locking center diff, which I probably explained wrong. Sorry, Subaru purists. So let's take this car out on the road, see what it's like. I love the door bong in this car because it's so Japanese. Ta-ding! Copyright music. All right, let's go. Couple more things. One, this gauge, this auxiliary gauge up here in the center of the dashboard, is not just used for turbo boost. It changes depending on what exactly you're doing. So I just adjusted the climate control and it showed me on the screen there, which is nice that it's being used for multiple things. One complaint that I have with the STI, at least this model, is the fact that I don't like the driving position. You sit up way too high for a car like this. I feel like I'm driving a Crosstrek, which is, it's basically the same thing as a Crosstrek from where you're sitting when you're not driving it. Until you really start to experience it, row through the gears, feel that turbo boost, and you realize, no, this isn't a Crosstrek. It's just got the Crosstrek driving position. Works well in a crossover, a miniature crossover, which is what the Crosstrek is. Not so much in an STI. I think this seat should be able to go down like an extra foot for it to feel truly special, but it's whatever. My first impression is that this engine revs so freely. It feels like there's nothing holding it back. It feels like this engine is just attached to my seat without the extra weight of the actual car being lugged around. It feels like the engine is just pulling me. The engine doesn't feel stressed or strained or held back at all. It revs so freely, almost like it's in neutral when you pull it through first gear. I keep getting to 5,000 RPM way faster than I'm expecting to. And at speed, it's quiet. It's really quiet. And also, over bumps and things, it's not as harsh as I would have expected. I think the reviews back in the day said it was quite harsh over bumps, which is what you'd expect from a sporty car like this, but not really, honestly. It doesn't feel super rough over bumps. The most important thing, obviously, in this car is the engine, the whole drivetrain. So you have a full-on turbocharged, powerful boxer experience. So let's make it even better by putting it into Sport Sharp mode and just feeling it. It doesn't feel super fast. When you really open it up, you expect it to have a bit more than it actually gives. And the engine doesn't sound super happy once you rev it past 5,500 RPM. It doesn't feel like it wants to rev super hard. But I will say, it felt pretty good. It had that typical turbo lag that you'd expect from a big turbo car like this. And yeah, just expected it to have a little bit more power. But let's feel handling here. It understeers quite easily, and then I could almost feel it try to kick the back end out thanks to that center diff. I have no clue. Oh, it's an automatic right now. That's what I'm seeing in the gauge cluster. And it felt like the differential tried to kick out the back end through the turn there. I'm impressed by how quiet it is. I'm impressed by how smooth it is. A little bit disappointed by how much power it has. I mean, it's got that turbo surge that you'd expect from this type of car. It's just when the turbo actually finally kicks in, it doesn't go as hard as I want it to be honest. But again, it's only 310 horsepower, so. And this car is finished in the best color, World Rally Blue. That's, every STI should be this color. It's the famous color, obviously, that dates back to that old cigarette company sponsor from the 1990s. That's where that color comes from, is that sponsorship. And it's here in the last STI. I'm talking about this car like it's not as fun as I expected it to be, but it's easily more fun than pretty much any other Subaru of today. 100%, that's not even a question. It's better to drive than a new WRX, even though I haven't driven the new WRX, but that car is, they didn't try, so. And I have to say this 6-speed manual is a joy. And isn't it weird driving a Subaru like this with a completely stock exhaust, it sounds really quiet. Doesn't sound that good, honestly. But it's better to drive this up and down city streets at 3 in the morning at 10/10ths than it is to drive a straight piped version, at least for the people that are trying to sleep. But yeah, the gear shift action's very easy, beautifully notchy. Rev match downshifts are super easy and super satisfying and rewarding. And also, once again, oh yeah, this thing is making me sad because this is it. This is the last STI. They're not doing another one. They've completely forgotten what makes their brand special, and now all they're making is appliances. What I'm saying is this is the last Subaru to have a personality, and a genuinely fun one. And right now, food blenders have more personality than every Subaru that's offered on the market at the moment. It's really sad because this is a genuinely cool, genuinely fun, genuinely good to drive car that's also perfectly daily driverable. Subaru they've completely lost their way. They've completely forgotten what makes them special, and they're not bringing the STI back. So this is it. Really sad. And honestly, after driving the final STI, I'm angry and I'm ready to grab blazing pitchforks and storm Fuji Heavy Industries in Japan, show them the error of their ways, and force them to make us another STI. But for right now, if you want a fun Subaru, your choices are a ugly, plasticky WRX with 3 more horsepower or Crosstrek Wilderness. So yeah, with that said, I'm gonna end that video there. Everyone, like, subscribe, do all the normal YouTube stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.